Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Trebas Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Maya Trabulsian. Thank you for joining us. Mayor Todd Gloria is expected to release a revised city budget proposal tomorrow. Today, community leaders in City Heights are speaking out against proposed cuts to libraries and rec centers. KPBS education reporter Katie Anastas says they argue kids in their neighborhood would lose the most.
We work to make sure
San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria's proposed budget would cut rec center hours and close all libraries on Sundays and Mondays. Ana Gonzalez says families like hers would have less access to things like the teen center, dance classes, and homework help.
Because they're not going to be having any other options. They're not going to have the opportunity to go to another places, and just to help these families to keep their kids healthy.
She and other opponents say the cuts will mean their kids will go without.
We cannot afford to lose funding in spaces where hope and opportunity still exists for families who cannot afford private camps or after-school programs for their children.
City Council member Sean Ela Rivera represents the community. He says that while the proposed cuts are the same across the city, they're not equitable.
What we are fighting back against is the idea that all communities are starting from the same place and in the same position to absorb the cuts that are being proposed.
The city's independent budget analyst shared their analysis of the proposed budget last week. They say the library department considered other ways to reduce expenses, but they were harder to implement or saved less money.
However, as we note in our report, different library users value and use their libraries for different reasons, which creates inequities when implementing uniform reductions. Specifically, users in the southeast and southern parts of the city, which typically use their libraries primarily for the physical spaces that they provide, are more likely to feel a greater impact from this reduction.
He suggested the library department present alternatives, such as having staff split their time between multiple locations in order to keep 3 or 4 critical library branches open. Ela Rivera says he hopes Gloria's revised budget proposes more targeted cuts.
If that is not done, then it'll be incumbent upon the council, my colleagues and I, to make amendments to the revised budget that address the concerns of the community.
Gloria is expected to release his revised budget tomorrow. Katie Anastas, KPBS News.
And we want to know, how would you balance the budget? Find out in our new interactive game where you get to make the tough calls. From public safety to housing, parks to potholes, every dollar matters. Raise revenue, cut spending, and choose what San Diego can afford. Can you balance the budget? Play now at kpbs.org/budget challenge, or you can scan the QR code on your screen.
Well, happy Tuesday. Weather headlines here as we head throughout the rest of the week. I am tracking sunny skies and very mild weather overall. Great weather here for the rest of the week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. But I am tracking our next chance of rain. I'll have an extended look at that updated forecast coming up.
The California Attorney General's office is opening a civil rights investigation into San Diego County juvenile hall facilities. Attorney General Rob Bonta's office says it will examine conditions at the East Mesa Juvenile Detention Facility and the Youth Transition Campus. Today's announcement did not include any specific incidents or allegations of mistreatment that may have prompted the investigation. More than $185 million in state funding is headed to the San Diego region for behavioral health services. KPBS reporter Tanya Thoren tells us where the money is going.
Governor Gavin Newsom is urging California cities to address homelessness with urgency and dignity.
That the public is exhausted by the conversation around behavioral health, conversation around homelessness and the challenges that we face, not just here in California, but all across this country.
He's backing that push with $3 billion in Proposition 1 funding to expand behavioral health housing and treatment options.
They wanted to see action. They want to see results. They wanted to see a kind of intentionality that they haven't seen in the past. And that's what we promised with Proposition 1.
Prop 1 dollars will now go to projects across San Diego County, from tribal land in Palma Valley to National City. The largest award went to Palomar Health Psychiatric Hospital, nearly $50 million to help build a 120-bed facility to address critical behavioral services. That's expected to open in 2026. 3 other nonprofits also got awards, including Casa de Amparo in San Marcos.
It's not easy raising money as a smaller nonprofit organization, but to have the state step in and realize that mental health is critical, it's a bold move.
Kathy Carpe is the CEO of Casa de Amparo. The 11-acre property serves vulnerable youth and foster children. Casa de Amparo received a $19 million award to help build a 16-bed psychiatric residential treatment facility on their property.
Obviously, we will be serving kids that need it, that are already housed in our programs, but we'll be able to open up to the community at large. And you wouldn't have to be system involved, meaning that you wouldn't have to be in the foster care system. If you specifically need mental health services of this nature, we would be able to open that up.
The County of San Diego got 2 separate grants, and 1 more went to Intertribal Wellness in Palma Valley. Not on the list was a controversial detox facility in San Marcos proposed by Interfaith Community Services. The 150-bed facility was proposed to be located near several schools. Interfaith says that project is now suspended. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
Americans saw lower prices at the grocery store last month, but some economists think today's inflation report could be a low point for consumer prices this year before President Trump's tariffs take further hold. Karen Kaifa is in Washington to break it down.
This was a bit of a mixed basket. Inflation slowed to a 4-year low in April, but if you dig a little bit deeper into the numbers, some of the items that brought the overall index down may offer some warnings.
Inflation cooled during April, an unexpected development for economists who expected year-over-year price increases to tick higher because of President Donald Trump's tariffs. According to the April reading of the Consumer Price Index released by the Bureau of Labor Statistics Tuesday morning, the annual inflation rate was 2.3%. That's the lowest annual inflation rate since February 2021. Still, analysts believe inflation could head higher and consumer spending could slow.
What's difficult about this reading is to know whether this is going to be an honest reflection of how things are going to look for the rest of the year, or if it's even an honest reflection of the way consumers will act tomorrow.
This was the first reading to capture the aftermath of President Trump's so-called Liberation Day tariff announcement on April 2nd. Economists cite a few reasons for the price hikes not immediately showing up in the inflation data, including significant shifts in White House policy that resulted in scalebacks or pauses on some tariffs and businesses front-loading imports before tariffs took effect. Consumers did see relief at the grocery store, where prices dipped 0.4% from March, including the price of eggs, down 12.7% for the month. Gas prices and airplane fares were also lower, but that raises potential warnings about falling demand amid declining consumer confidence readings.
Egg prices were down month over month, but they're still far higher than they were 1 year ago. Also pushing the overall index up, housing costs, which have remained sticky and, of course, represent a big chunk of a household budget. In Washington, I'm Karen Kaifa.
The Marine Corps has renewed its contract with an Oceanside-based credit union. KPBS investigative reporter Scott Rodd says the relationship has drawn scrutiny from members of Congress.
Frontwave Credit Union has an exclusive arrangement with the Marine Corps that goes back decades. Every year, thousands of Marine recruits who come through boot camp in San Diego are signed up for the credit union in order to process their paychecks. A KPBS investigation last spring revealed Frontwave collects millions in overdraft fees annually from young service members. In fact, it's an important source of revenue for the company. Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren last week urged the Department of Defense to pause renewing the contract. She wanted the agreement to have stronger financial protections for recruits. A spokesperson for the Marine Corps confirmed the branch has since renewed the agreement with Frontwave, but did not provide additional details about the contract. Scott Rodd, KPBS News.
I'm Jeff Bennett. Tonight on the NewsHour, President Trump kicks off a 4-day trip to the Middle East. That's at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Race, language, and insurance status continues to decide who ends up in the hospital for preventable conditions in California. KPBS health reporter Heidi DeMarco says a new report is highlighting the disparity in access to preventative health care as House Republicans unveil proposed funding cuts to Medicaid.
Treatable conditions like diabetes, asthma, and high blood pressure sent more than 175,000 Californians to the hospital in 2022. The California Pan-Ethnic Health Network co-authored a new report analyzing that data.
Black Californians are hospitalized at much higher rates for conditions that are preventable, as are Native American, American Indian Californians, as are people who speak a language other than English, and also importantly, people who are enrolled in Medi-Cal.
The data shows that people on Medi-Cal were hospitalized for preventable conditions at more than twice the rate of those with private insurance, and nearly 14% of Black Californians ended up in the hospital for conditions that could have been managed early, compared to just 9% of whites.
If we were to reduce, for example, that difference between Black Californians and white Californians, such that Black Californians still had some preventable hospitalizations, right, but just didn't have more than white Californians, we would save the state over $126 million a year.
The report comes just as House Republicans released a draft bill Sunday, instructing the House Committee on Energy and Commerce to cut $880 billion from the programs it oversees through 2034. Karen Savage San Juan is expecting the cuts to Medicaid to be devastating.
When you terminate people's access to health care, it doesn't mean they won't get sick. It means they won't have access to the timely and appropriate primary care that they need and will therefore become sicker and end up in emergency departments and hospitals, which costs the healthcare system much more money.
She says expanding access, not cutting it, is the smarter way to cut costs and keep communities healthy. Heidi DeMarco, KPBS News.
Southern California's newest Center for Innovative Mother and Baby Care is set to open in La Jolla. Our media partner KGTV toured the new $664 million North Tower at Scripps Memorial Hospital today. The 8-story tower features 188 inpatient beds, state-of-the-art operating suites, intensive care, and comprehensive mother and baby services.
It doesn't get any better than this. This is literally almost 20 years from the time we started planning this till the time we opened the door. I mean, you saw the doctors in there. I mean, there's technology that they wanted built into these facilities and these rooms so that they could use it. They're excited.
See a spacious room like this, our ability to move freely throughout the room to get everything in position as we want it and not trip over a cord, it makes a difference.
The North Tower at Scripps Memorial Hospital is set to open to patients on June 1st. It hasn't been smooth sailing, or rather flying, at Newark Liberty International Airport over the past few weeks. One carrier is addressing the matter head on by saying the situation is being addressed. John Lawrence reports.
Flying in and out of the Garden State hasn't been great.
Lately, there's been a lot of curiosity about the increase in delays and cancellations at Newark Airport.
Those travel headaches are largely from recent air traffic control outages, which in some cases led to a lack of communication between flight crews and the tower. But in a message sent to frequent flyers on Monday, United Airlines says their policies and procedures can handle any problems.
It is absolutely safe to fly. Our pilots are highly trained professionals. There are incredibly skilled teams at both United and the FAA looking after you and your flight.
United officials also praised the Department of Transportation's initial plan to update air traffic control systems nationwide and boost controller staffing.
The DOT will convene a delay reduction meeting this Wednesday with all airlines who have flights at Newark. The goal is to have a manageable number of flights land at Newark.
AAA reports more than 45 million people plan to travel at least 50 miles from home this Memorial Day weekend. While the majority of these trips will be made by car, United Airlines CEO Scott Kirby says, quote, neither the FAA nor United will ever compromise on safety. I'm John Lawrence reporting.
A California police department is leading the nation on the technology front. The largest radar-enabled drone program in the country just launched in Palm Springs. Tori King has an inside look at their new drone as first responder program.
We're going to be able to take our response times and take them from 3 to 5 minutes on average and get people on scene and assets on scene in under a minute.
The Palm Springs Police Department launched the largest radar-enabled drone responder program in the U.S., spanning 37 square miles without the need for human spotters. It's technology the department says will help fight crime and save lives. Lieutenant William Hutchinson is in charge of the program, completely funded through grants. He says the department is proud to lead the way on cutting-edge software being used to improve public safety.
We're really excited as a department to get this off the ground. This asset matters not only to the officers in the field, but the public at large who really depend on emergency services to be there quickly.
The drones use matrix space radar sensor technology to respond to emergency calls in real time, controlled by a team inside the department. Once a drone is launched, trained officers can fly them with a simple touch of a button.
We have thermal capabilities on our drones. Thermal capabilities means I can see heat at night. I cannot see into your home. I cannot use it as X-ray vision to see through objects. But if you're running from the police and you try to hide under a bush, your body is going to emit heat, and we're going to be able to see that.
The drones can be launched from docking stations set up on roofs at 3 different locations. These drones are also adapted for use in the desert climate and can withstand heat up to 124 degrees. They also use top-of-the-line camera and AI technology to avoid planes, helicopters, buildings, and any other objects that might be in the sky.
We want to geofence some areas so we don't crash into buildings or we don't crash into power lines, things like that. The airport here is outlined in red, so that means if our drone tried to go there, it's going to the system is going to stop it.
The drones will only be used for active emergency service calls, including situations like a stolen vehicle pursuit, a missing child, a lost hiker, a hostage situation, or even an active shooter. They will not be used for random surveillance of civilians.
Is transparency super important with a program like this so that the public can trust that these drones are being only used for police business and active crimes?
Absolutely. Not only is some of the law, there are laws in place, but we have good policy in place to make sure that these drones are being used for the right purposes. First and foremost, we're not going to conduct random surveillance. We're not going to be flying over your house, looking into your pool and seeing you sunbathing in the backyard. We are going to be responding directly to calls for service.
The department will also be upgrading 2 rooms inside the department to serve as an operations center for the drone program.
Tori King with that report. The renovations are expected to be completed by October, and the Palm Springs Police Department also says it will have a web page for the public to track the drone movements to ensure transparency around the clock. The KPBS Public Matters Initiative has a new addition, social media reporter and host Jake Gatta. He recently debuted his first story on Poway's own scandal around the encrypted messaging app Signal. He joined Public Matters reporter Amita Sharma to talk about the new role.
Jake, why did you choose this particular piece to launch your reporting at KPBS?
Well, I thought it was interesting how this one was an example of what we want to do here at Public Matters and talk about issues that are local, but also as they connect to the wider nation and the rest of what's going on. This story was, an example of something that a city council member was doing here in Poway that was very similar to something that was going on at the national level. There are elected officials who are maybe using different communications methods. In this case, it was Signal, which is an encrypted app, to conduct official business. And that's going on here in the city of Poway, and it's also going on at the top level with some of the people in the current administration. So really a way to connect some of the stuff that's going on here with everything that's going on in the rest of the country.
What is your vision for this new job?
Well, exactly what I just said. I want to help people here in San Diego really follow along with everything that's going on and know how it's going to impact them in their daily life. I think what Public Matters is all about is not only getting people to know how they can be involved, but making sure that they're staying engaged.
So how do you try to get people to stay engaged? I'm asking because I know that social media is all about the views, the likes, the followers, but you're starting at a time when so many people are turning away from the news. How do you plan to lure them back in?
I think part of it is more that people are turning away from maybe some of the traditional outlets for news. I think there's an appetite for news and there's an appetite for that information, but people aren't necessarily going to the same platforms that they've always been to. So there's still people who watch TV and listen to the radio, but there's a lot of people who go on their phone on social media or on YouTube, and that's where they're looking for any sort of information or content. So there's some people that are getting some news fatigue for sure, but there's also some people that just want to have that brought to them in a different form, on a different platform, and that's what we can do here at Public Matters as a social media host as well. I'm going to be able to bring this news and this content to a different platform, to these social media platforms, so that people are having it in an accessible way and it's always right in front of them at their fingertips. They don't have to go find it somewhere else.
These days, I hear so many journalists and so many politicians say we've got to meet people where they are. When it comes to explaining what is happening to our democracy, what does that statement mean to you?
Well, like I said, meeting people where they are is meeting people where they're going for their content, for their news. And a lot of times that's just on social media or on their phones. And that's just the way that people are going to be consuming information now. And so, like I said, we need to meet them there. And that means not only just putting this information out there, but also doing it in a way that's going to be approachable on these different platforms. So there's a different way to do a social media video versus a broadcast video, and there's going to be people who respond differently to those different types of content. So that's what we're going to be trying to pin down here.
In addition to what you've outlined, 6 months from now or a year from now, what do you hope to be able to say about what you've accomplished?
I want to say that we've gotten more people back involved in engaging with civic life and with what's going on, not just in the country, but here in San Diego. I want people to know that they can get all the information they need about stuff that's going on here in San Diego, how it impacts their life from our platforms on social media. They're not necessarily getting everything that they could out of local news here, and we want to be able to bring as much as we can to them. And then I want people to be following us at KPBS and at Public Matters and know that they can come to our platform every day to get the best information and to be informed about what's going on. And I think that if in a year from now I can walk around San Diego and know that people are following our content and they're staying engaged because of it, then I'll have done my job.
Jake Gatta, I'm so glad that you've joined our Public Matters team, and I'm really looking forward to your work.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it also.
And Public Matters is a partnership with KPBS, iNews Source, and Voice of San Diego. You can see more of our stories at kpbs.org/Public Matters.
As we head into tonight, I will be tracking partly cloudy skies, especially near the coastal areas. Overnight lows are mainly going to be in the 50s. Some areas will dip into the 40s here along the interior, but overall we'll see primarily a mix of 50s here for overnight lows. We will see a little bit more cloud coverage the closer you get to the coastal areas. 56 tonight for both Oceanside and Camp Pendleton. Future track radar showing that by 6 a.m. Wednesday morning, some mountain snow and some mountain rain, but overall still tracking that cloudy start there for your early Wednesday morning. By about that 9 a.m. drive into work, we will start to see that cloud coverage starting to burn off just a little bit. And by the afternoon hours, we'll start to see some pretty good peaks of sunshine in the forecast. So overall, your Wednesday afternoon is looking pretty nice here. Wednesday evening, Wednesday night, heading into Thursday is looking pretty nice as well. So overall, here's the setup for your Wednesday. We'll see some cooler air with windy conditions across the mountains, but overall, it's going to stay warm. It's going to stay dry here across the coast, including the southern coast here setting up for us. Temperature-wise, we'll be back in the low to mid 70s. Pretty nice weather here for your Wednesday afternoon. Right there at 72 for Oceanside and Camp Pendleton, 71 here in San Diego. Thursday, looking forward, we'll still be watching out for some rainfall there across parts of the mountains. But overall, cooler air, drier conditions continuing here, at least as we head into Thursday. So for that coast 5-day forecast, we'll see partly cloudy skies, some cloud coverage passing from time to time here Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Heading into the weekend, we'll see a light chance of rain there on Saturday. The best chance of organized rainfall will be there on Sunday. As we take a look at the inland forecast, very similar. We'll see sunny skies Wednesday, Thursday, Friday before the rainfall moves in with highs in the 60s for Saturday and Sunday. For the mountains, we'll see a little bit of cloud coverage there for Saturday and Sunday. The overall chance of rain doesn't look very good. Highs will stay in the 50s. And then for the desert areas, we'll be in the 80s and 90s before that cool front sweeps its way through, dropping us into the 70s with clouds.
Former San Diego Wave FC star Alex Morgan has a new role with the team, and that is of part owner. Today, the Wave announced Morgan as a minority investor. Morgan retired last year as one of the most accomplished women's soccer players in U.S. history. The SoCal native lives in Encinitas and was the centerpiece for Wave FC when it joined the NWSL in 2022. The Wave's next match, Friday in New Jersey against Gotham FC. And here is a look at what we are working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. RFK Jr. is headed to Capitol Hill to promote and defend his massive overhaul of the Department of Health and Human Services. We're going to have that story on NPR's Morning Edition. And a longtime medical death investigator is out with a new memoir. KPBS Midday Edition sits down with Paul Parker to talk about his career and personal journey. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. And thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Previs Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.